Well, in our last segment, I discussed how NBC News canceled former RNC chairwoman Ronna McDaniel after their staff threw a temper tantrum on the air. I hope it's obvious that this is about more than Ronna McDaniel or conservative voices. If the left calls every election they lose rigged, well, conservatives will lose their job simply for raising questions. That's a road to compromising our election system. They want to silence and discourage conservatives from getting involved at a time when we need people willing to step forward, serve in election systems, and be whistleblowers if necessary. Joining me now to discuss this and more, FRC Action President Jody Hice. He served for 8 years in Congress and has a book coming out next week on this very topic, Sacred Trust, Election Integrity, and the Will of the People. Jody, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Tony, always great to be with you. Thanks for the incredible job you do.
Well, thank you, and thank you for being our Friday host here and then often filling in for me when I'm out on the road. So the timing of your book couldn't be more perfect, particularly given your passion for this issue. In fact, before joining FRC, you ran for Secretary of State in your home state of Georgia, which oversaw elections. Georgia's loss was FRC's gain. You know something about this issue. This is a bigger issue than Ronna McDaniel or conservatives appearing on legacy media, right?
Yeah, it really is, Tony. You know, when there are so many issues we're dealing with in our country, and you kind of like throw a dart to land on a major issue, be it the border or our military, the economy, attacks on religious liberty, so many major issues. But one of those major issues, when you're dealing with a constitutional republic like we have, is free and fair elections. There is no question that if we ever lose election integrity in this country, then we lose everything. And once that is lost, you can't regain it. I mean, if election integrity does not exist, then how do you ever get back the will of the people in this country? And, you know, at the end of the day, elections are not necessarily about who wins. What it is about is whether or not it was an accurate portrayal of the will of the people. Did the people's will prevail? And, you know, if that is the case and my candidate loses, I may be disappointed, but I can come back next time and try to rally the voters, rally support, and try to regain it. But if the election integrity issue is removed, then our entire republic and the will of the people is removed.
So give our viewers and listeners an overview of Sacred Trust. What are they going to find when they open the pages of Sacred Trust?
Well, it's kind of three parts. Underlying all of it is the issue of election integrity, but a lot of people want to know, how did I, a former pastor, ever end up in Congress? So I share a little bit as to that story. Is kind of a really quite an interesting story, and the footsteps of footprints of God leading me to Congress in an area I never dreamed. It was never on my radar. But then in addition, second part deals with some of the experiences in Congress, particularly as it relates to the battle of election integrity, which I was a major voice and a major person on the end of the spear on that issue, being a part of the oversight committee. And then the overlying arch topic is election integrity. And that runs all throughout the book, but the major portion of it deals with that issue, both where we have been in the past, where we are right now on this issue, and some steps that must be taken in order for us to secure election integrity for future generations.
All right, before I ask you this next question, I assure you that I am not going to cancel your contract if you answer in a way that I disagree with. Are you concerned about what happened in the 2020 election? Do you think that there were irregularities that led to that outcome?
Yeah, I am concerned. That's why I, from Georgia, challenged the election results from Georgia. And listen, I'm not alone in that. Democrats have been challenging elections for decades, and yet they somehow get a pass. But allow a conservative to say, look, there's something that doesn't register well with this last election. Let's back up. Let's make sure that it's an accurate portrayal of the will of the people. And all of a sudden we get in trouble. But yeah, I have serious concerns. Everything, look, and all of it came out of COVID. It was because of COVID that we saw Democrats, and this was under our jurisdiction in the Oversight Committee, we saw Democrats start pushing for election changes, for a federal takeover of election.
Right.
Pushing certain pieces of legislation, and those pushes made significant changes in elections all throughout our country. And yes, there were serious concerns that need to be addressed.
Let me, just so people, I played this at the beginning of the show, but I want to play this clip again so that people don't say you're just saying that Democrats challenged the election results. I want to play this it's a montage of Democratic politicians and others questioning the 2016 election when Donald Trump won. Play clip 7.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Would you be my vice presidential candidate? Folks, look, I absolutely agree.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put in office because the Russians interfered.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
The president-elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
You said you believe that Russia's interference altered the outcome of the election.
I do.
We have a president who, if in fact it is proven, has been assisted by the Russians and may in fact not be a legitimate president.
I have an objection.
I object to the 15 votes from the state of North Carolina. I object because people are horrified.
So did all of that go down the memory hole? Everybody just forgot all about it?
Yeah, it must have, Tony. Listen, that is a powerful, powerful montage, and it displays the reality. All the appearance is, if you're a left-wing individual, you can protest, you can do anything you want to, you can challenge elections. Look, Stacey Abrams right here in our own state of Georgia, she didn't concede her loss of governorship for forever. I mean, it goes on and on and on. The different examples, what you just played there is just a tip of the iceberg. In fact, I saw that a recent Rasmussen poll, Tony, 57% are already now saying, of Democrats, are saying they would challenge and not certify President Trump's election if he wins later this year in November.
Well, because they're sore because their cheating didn't win? I mean,
look, we haven't even had an election, and they're talking about don't certify it.
I don't want to run out of time here because in the book, laying out the sacred trust, it is a sacred trust. I mean, it is what keeps America going, and it's what you said. It's not so much. I mean, I've only lost one election in all the years that I've ran for office, but I knew I could come back and run again, and work a little harder. You improve what you do if I wanted to run again, but if you feel like the system's rigged against you, then that's a whole different thing. That's deflating. That's discouraging, and that causes people to react, either to shrink back and not be involved, or to get angry and take inappropriate actions. Since 2020, there have been a number of reform efforts in states across the nation, mostly red states, but elected leaders did respond to the problems in 2020, and our votes, while there's always going to be the chance that something happens and there's manipulation, we're better off today than we were in 2020. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. And I'm very grateful for that. And it's because there were problems. If there was no problems, then there was nothing to fix.
Good point.
But the fact that you have seen one state after another across the board pass stronger election laws, that indicates that they have seen consistently that there are issues that need to be corrected. So, yeah, overall, I do feel much better going into this election. And for that, and with that, Tony, it is critical that no one misses out on an election. Go out and vote. Your vote is going to count, and we've got to keep pushing this. And at the same time, we do need boots on the ground, people working in their precincts, people being involved. Eyes and boots on the ground make a huge difference to maintain accountability and transparency.
Right, so volunteer with your local Republican county, parish party, where you can do poll watching, be certified as a poll watcher, make sure there's no cheating, just be present. But I want to go back to what you just said. Make sure you vote. And now, as conservatives, we would prefer that we have one-day elections and everybody votes on that day. But that's not the way it is. The left has changed the laws. We need to use the laws to our advantage as they have. If you can vote early, vote early. If you can vote by mail, I would encourage you to drop your ballot off in person. I wouldn't necessarily trust the mail, but we need to be encouraging people to turn out and use the laws to our advantage.
That's right. The laws are the laws. And when it's a law, it applies on both sides. So use the laws, whatever they are in your state, use them, cooperate with them, vote early if that's legal in your state. Whatever the case may be, we need to exercise, you're exactly right, exercise the laws to the best of our ability, but don't sit home and do nothing. Ours is a system that does not work without involvement of the people. And the epicenter of that involvement is for the people to get out and vote. And for us not to exercise that most basic right has drastic consequences. We hear every election that this is the most important election ever. But really, when we come to this one, this is probably the most important election ever. This will transform the direction and the trajectory of our entire nation.
I mean, I think that statement is correct, because every election we face as the nation becomes more divided is the most important election, because we've seen such a shift. It's no longer, it used to be you kind of just changed jerseys, but the plays were the same. That's not the case anymore between the two political parties. It is a stark contrast between the two parties, as we're seeing in the Biden administration, the pushing of the whole LGBTQ agenda, abortion funding, the international policy that runs counter to the values that made America strong and build family and community. All of that is under assault, and it's the result of an election.
Absolutely. And I've heard you say it probably 100 times. I've said it over and over as well, that elections have consequences. They always do. And the greater the consequence, the greater the importance to get out and vote. And so this is the time to make sure that you do that. And fortunately, we've had so many states that have put forth legislation to make sure that every vote is going to count. And so we've got to go work all that we can to make sure that
we need to go vote and also get a copy of Sacred Trust. How can folks get a copy of that?
It's coming out next week, but you can pre-order by going to Amazon. And we're excited about this, Tony. Like you said, the timing as we enter into this election cycle is extremely important. And so you can go to Amazon. You can order your book right now today.
All right, pick up a copy of Sacred Trust. All right, Jody Hice, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Sir.